All right, so our most recent winter storm has moved out. So let's take a look at the next time frame to watch for, and I think this one's legit as well. So we'll take a look at that, see what the models are doing. First, if you haven't yet, please hit that subscribe button and continue to help this channel grow. I appreciate that. So the most recent winter storm that moved through was a significant one. So many reports of 12 plus inches of snow in parts of Oklahoma, Arkansas as well, many 10 to 12, 10 to 13 inch reports. Significant snow across Tennessee and northern Georgia, North Carolina, all the way to eastern, southeastern Virginia. Saw a couple 5-inch reports just south of Richmond. So pretty big storm that went through. So that's moved out. So the next time frame, I think, this for the next week or so, I think it's going to be pretty quiet. So it's a good time just to, relax and, enjoy the calmer weather before the next threat moves in. So here I got pulled up the GFS ensembles. So quieter week ahead in the wake of our, departing storm here. We're going to see some more cold air moving in. And then some ridging kind of, moving across the country. So we'll have a brief little warm up later in the week ahead of a cold front. So as you see here, there's our next trough digging in. So this is now late Friday here, and that's going to be the next cold air push. And that trough is going to settle in. I think we'll have a couple storm chances, but also it's going to be returns from colder air. So, at the leading edge of this trough here, where the blue is digging into the United States there, that's where you're going to have a cold front. That cold front's going to be sweeping through, and behind it's going to be sharp, right? So you're going to have a more southerly flow out ahead of it where you see that ridging, and then behind it, those northerly winds are going to come in, dragging in that colder air. So that moves in. So next weekend is when that front moves in, and then you see that trough really settle in there. And then look at that ridging, right? That negative EPO returning. And then we have also some ridging in the Atlantic as well, which is interesting. So I think another pattern is setting up where it could produce definitely some cold, but does it produce some snow? We'll have to see. I think so. But you see that the ridging across the top there in the Arctic really pinches off, traps that tropospheric polar vortex in over the Hudson Bay. So that's really just going to keep funneling in, right? So you have the winds coming in on the the northern western side of that. That's going to be funneling in the colder air, but you also have pieces of energy floating around that. So storm chances for sure as we head into next weekend and then beyond. So we'll pop over to the operational models here. So here's the GFS. So quiet week ahead, right? This is now Wednesday, so not a whole lot going on. Then as we head into next week, and that's when we have our cold front move through, and you can see that showing up there with some precipitation breaking out, kind of ahead of this front. So I think this is showing Saturday. The timing could be a little bit different, right? This is still a week or so out, but I think with the clash of the two two air masses where you have warm and more moist air and then cold, dry air behind that, there could be a severe threat. So I would be concerned about that in parts of the deep south next weekend ahead of this cold front. And then the question is, do we see a larger scale system form along this front? And this is the GFS here. So the GFS, very unsettled weather with this front. Again, that severe threat. And then that front just the Arctic boundary kind of settles in pretty far south. And the GFS is showing a couple threats. So here we have, this is now early Tuesday the 21st. We have a storm threat forming along the east coast. And then another threat in the southeast as well, but another significant snowfall in the GFS there. So a couple threats once that front kind of settles in. So we might have a threat along the front, and then as that front kind of stalls out there across maybe the northern Gulf of Mexico, off the southeast coast, we could have another threat or two. I'll pop over to the Canadian here. So we'll put this, again, the front moves in. There it is next week, a storm moving along that frontal boundary, and then really forms a pretty significant storm. This is now the 21st. A pretty wide shield, a big shield of snow on the northwestern side of that. So that's a pretty big snowstorm on the Canadian, just as that front kind of moves and settles into parts of the south and southeast. Canadian only goes out to 240 hours, so we can't see what it would do beyond that. But again, it's the models are suggesting here, so that front's going to come through. There's no doubt about it at this point. That front is going to come through. Do we see a storm form as that front initially moves through, or do we just kind of see maybe some unsettled weather, not a large scale system, but as that frontal boundary stalls out, do we see more of a storm threat? And then here is the European AI. Show the European AI, so we'll put this at next week. So again, there's our front moving through, some unsettled weather. And then this looks much like the Canadian, where you kind of have this broad area here, and then we have a low pressure system forming along the southeast coast, kind of reinforcing that moisture and throwing back that moisture in the colder air. So that's a snowstorm there. From interior northeast, maybe from Philadelphia, New York, and Boston. So it's going to get interesting. Again, we have a quiet week ahead, and then so plenty of time to kind of monitor the timing of this next front that's going to come through. It looks like next weekend at this point, give or take a day or two. And then I think, so we might have a storm threat along that front, and then post-frontal passage, we might have a couple threats as well. So next week and beyond, looking very, very interesting. Enjoy the quiet weather this week, because it's going to change in a big way, I think, starting next week. Starting probably with a severe threat in the southeast. The deep south, I should say, maybe Texas, over to the lower Mississippi Valley. And then I think we see more winter storm threats after that. But that's it for now. Thanks for watching. And then we'll have an update probably on Monday. We'll see what the models are looking like at this point. All right, have a great weekend, everyone.